What's up, guys? Today we're taking a look at the new CRBN TruFoam waves. Earlier this year, CRBN kicked off the foam paddle craze by releasing the TruFoam Genesis. And since then, we've seen a ton of other brands release a lot of new and interesting foam paddles of their own. But now, CRBN is back with the waves, promising more power, more dwell, and more consistency over the Genesis. But the question is, does the waves live up to those promises, or has CRBN fallen behind in the race that they started? I won't dive too deep into the specs, but let's take a quick look at what's changed from the Genesis and what makes these waves unique. So the core material and paddle construction has remained largely the same on the waves as it was on the Genesis. However, they changed the shape and structure of the voids cut out of the foam core to a vertical foam pattern, which CRBN says was to increase power, dwell, and more closely mimic the feel of tennis strings. Another change was to remove the fiberglass patch that was on the TruFoam Genesis, which some people blamed for an inconsistent feel. Instead, they now have a 5-layer face layup with 2 layers of carbon fiber on the top and bottom, with a layer of fiberglass sandwiched in between. The waves will be offered in the same 4 shapes as the TruFoam Genesis, and like the Genesis, the waves will be priced at $280, but you can take 10% off using discount code SCOOTER, which brings the total down to $252. And before we get into how these paddles play, if you guys wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, it is the easiest way to help make reviews like this possible. Alright, so before we get into it, just know that some of this is going to sound pretty negative, but just hear me out. It's not that I think that these paddles are necessarily bad, but a lot has changed in the paddle market this year, and in comparison, these feel a bit dated and niche. But with that said, I do think that CRBN achieved their goal of making a more powerful paddle for the TruFoam lineup. You get very similar feel and shot shaping ability as you did with the Genesis, but now with a boost in power. And I think for a lot of people, a more powerful TruFoam Genesis is a great option and is exactly what they're looking for. But as I'm sure you've heard by now, the sweet spot on the waves is not as good as a lot of other recent releases. Now, I personally don't think that it's that bad. It's just that so many paddles now have such massive sweet spots that these feel bad by comparison. I personally think that the bigger issue is the fall off in feel when you miss the sweet spot. I find that shots outside of the sweet spot feel really jarring and off-putting, and I think that's where the big problem lies with the waves. It's not that these are bad paddles at all, and I actually played pretty well with them. But with elite paddles like the Selkirk Project Boomstick and the Gearbox GX2 Power competing in the same space, and now budget paddles like the Vatic Pro V-Sol and Rhombus Quanta offering elite performance for under $100, it makes the waves a bit harder to recommend. But I do still think that there are a couple of markets for the TruFoam waves, but they are a bit niche. The first and most obvious is if you're a diehard TruFoam Genesis fan and you've always wanted a bit more power, then I think this is a great option. The second is if you have a tennis background, I don't think that there's a better paddle line on the market that works as well with the swing mechanics of tennis than the TruFoam line. The TruFoam line offers a unique feel and playstyle that no other brand has really replicated, and there will be a market of people that really love that. And while the waves wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, I still think CRBN has some really unique tech and opportunity with the TruFoam line, and I'm excited to see what they put out in the future. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and stay tuned, I have more reviews coming soon.